Hello there. Thank you for joining this recording of this chat we'll be having with Flo from Indigo, all about the House annual survey for 2022. So this is the second time we've done an annual survey with Indigo, and it's really been fantastic. We've had such a good turnout of nearly 60% of venues from our network taking part as well. So absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for entering your information, your data. Really helpful to give a picture from throughout the Southeast about what's going on with venues at the moment. Hopefully this will be a short session where we can look at what you've told us and we can have a think about what you might be able to do in your venue and what we might be able to do to help. So what I'll do now, I'll pass over to Flo Carr, who's kindly agreed to talk us through the findings and to maybe give us a few suggestions of what we might need to work together on in the future. Over to you, Flo.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone, and thanks for watching. So I'm going to share my screen and get started. Yeah, we ran this annual survey last year as well. So it's great to be able to compare with the results from June 2021 as well. So just to give you a sense of the survey in general, it was sent out by us to 145 house network contacts, so all of you across the network. It ran for 2.5 weeks from the 9th to the 21st of June, and we had 85 responses, which, as John said, is a nearly 60% completion rate. So that's great, and thanks again for all your really valuable input into that. We asked a whole series of different questions. So for those of you who didn't take part, this is the kind of stuff that we covered. We asked a little bit about the organisation that you worked at to enable us to kind of split the results in different ways and find out about different ways that different issues were affecting different types of organisations. We asked about programming and audiences. We asked about how you're engaging with House. We asked about your staff and training needs, and we asked a little bit then more about your organisation, so some about your plans and policies, and your funding and financial resilience. So I'm just going to take you through the full results. It will be a bit of a whistle-stop tour, but hopefully useful, and you can always pause and look at the graphs in a bit more detail if you'd like to. So about your organisation. So the majority of organisations who responded are arts centres or multi-arts venues, closely followed by theatres. And just over half, 56% of you said that you were small scale. So we had a kind of pretty equal split between small scale and then medium to large scale venues. And 14% of you said you're part of an educational institution like a school or university. So getting into the kind of meat of things. So the first little section that we asked you about was programming. And for this section, we were really interested in getting a sense of how much COVID was still kind of impacting the way you're programming now, having been kind of reopened for the last year or so. So we asked how far in advance you tend to book your program. The majority of you fell in that kind of middle section, 6 to 12 months. We realized that it really varies depending on the show and the kind of stuff you're programming, but the majority of you said that it's in that kind of 6 to 12 month period. We then asked whether COVID has had an impact on that, and 44% of you said that you're booking things in closer to the date of the performance. 42% said it's made no difference, and 14% said you're booking further in advance. So overall, we've seen a bit of a skew since COVID towards booking stuff closer into the date of the performance. We asked you then how regularly you put on theatre performances at your venue. This was, again, quite spread, reflecting the kind of different types of organisations we have in the House network, from 26% of you saying more than once a week to 4% of you saying just every year, and only 0% saying never. We asked whether COVID's had an impact on how regularly you're putting on performances. And this was quite striking compared to the last one. 48% of you said that you are putting on fewer theatre performances since COVID. And I think as we get into the kind of looking at audiences, and we might get a bit of a sense of why that is happening. We then asked you what you would say your average attendance for theatre performance is as a percentage of your capacity, to get a sense of how well theatre tends to sell. The majority of you, again, were in those kind of middle sections, 44% of you saying average attendance is 25 to 50%, and 42 saying 51 to 75%. So you've got about half and half of you saying under 50% and over 50%. And here we asked what the impact of COVID has been on your average attendance, and nearly 3/4 of you said that attendance is lower than it was pre-COVID. So again, that's pretty striking, and one of the recommendations that we will come to at the end is looking at how House can support to help you bring that average attendance back up to how it was before COVID. We asked how you tend to source your program, and it was really quite varied. Again, lots of you kind of finding program in lots of different ways. You can see all of these ones, over 2/3 of you selected them. House's tour program offer coming in at 71%, which is brilliant to see so many of you using the House offer. But the majority comes from recommendations from colleagues and reprogramming theatre companies that you have had at your venues before. We asked you what type of work you produce or program. I think this is very wonderful, also a very colourful graph, but just so amazing to see the range of work that is being programmed across the network. The majority of you programming theatre, of course, but also really high levels of music, comedy, family work, community engagement events, and even down to circus, where you have 43% of you programming some circus shows. So the next little section is about audiences. And this is where we started to dig into kind of confidence about attracting audiences to that big range of work that we looked at in the last slide. So we asked you, when programming this type of work, how confident are you that you'll be able to attract previous attenders? So the next question is on new audiences. So just remember, this one is focusing on previous attenders. And you were able to pick on a scale from not very confident to very confident, which was kind of -10 to +10. And you can see that actually for almost, for every type of work, you're over into the kind of positive side. So there were quite high levels of confidence across the network for attracting audiences, and particularly for comedy, dance, music, family work, that kind of thing. But lower levels for theatre, spoken word, and circus. So we then asked about programming, how confident you are attracting new audiences how confident you are to be able to attract new audiences for these kinds of work. And the ones that came out on top were comedy, outdoor arts, dance, and family work. Oh, I just need to check something on these graphs. Oh no, that is right. Sorry, I thought I saw a mistake on one of the graphs, but I didn't. It's all fine. Okay, cool. So this is quite a complicated one. So I'm just gonna compare this. So what this is doing here is comparing the confidence attracting previous attenders and new audiences. And the way I've sorted it is by the biggest kind of difference in confidence level. So there are kind of higher differences in theatre and music between the kind of levels of confidence attracting previous audiences and new audiences. And I think what's quite interesting and striking about these is that there are bigger kind of differences for the more traditional art forms, so theatre, music, exhibitions, the kind which would usually make up a very large section of your programs. And you can see, much higher levels of confidence with previous audiences, lower levels of confidence with new audiences. And we also know from Indigo's wider research into audiences and those people coming back to events that the kind of older, more traditional theatre goers who tend to go more to theatre, music, and exhibitions are the ones who are less likely to be returning. So although you have higher levels of confidence attracting those kind of previous audiences, those might be the ones who are less likely to be coming back. So that's where the focus really needs to turn to the kind of work work that you can bring in new audiences for. And you've shown us here that you have higher levels of confidence attracting new audiences for things like comedy and circus, film and outdoor arts, and family work as well. And those are, you're kind of just as happy attracting previous audiences as new audiences for those. So we then asked you what you've been doing to help rebuild your audience numbers. And this showed a really brilliant kind of range of different things you've been trying out to try and attract people back to your venue since COVID. We can see that attracting work for families and children is really high up there. And that makes a lot of sense, especially given the kind of wider research we've been doing at Indigo, where we can see that families are one of the most confident in coming back. We can see you've been increasing your marketing activity, 71% of you saying that, but only 49% of you have been spending more on marketing. So that's a bit of a kind of possibly a little disconnect there. Great to see a kind of increase in marketing activity, but that might be, slightly limited if you're not able to commit kind of more funds onto marketing as well. You're having to kind of make your money go a little bit further, which is always tricky. And yeah, lots of other things kind of coming out there to show all the different things you are trying to do. We then asked you whether your organization has an audience development plan. We saw this has actually dropped slightly since last year. So in 2021, 43% of you said you had an audience development plan, compared to 37% in 2022. Though lots of you are working on one, you said 43%. We asked you whether you work with any of the following local partners to help develop audiences for the cultural offering in your area. And yeah, lots of you said that you did do that. You predominantly worked with other cultural organizations, but you also worked with local authorities, some local media bodies, and though fewer of you working with kind of individual hospitality and tourism businesses. We asked you about working with artists, which are the following ways you currently worked with artists. The ones that came out most strongly were supporting new work, e.g. with a financial contribution, offering residencies and producing shows. When compared with 2021 though, we can see that all of these are slightly lower. So your 51% rather than 59 are supporting new work from artists, and 49% rather than 57 are offering residencies. So it may be that you're, with the kind of impact of COVID ongoing, it's been harder for you to be able to do this. We asked you how you're hoping or planning to work with artists in the future. And again, that top one, working with more local artists, is very high, as it was last year, 82% of you. And 59% of you are keen to book the same artists more regularly, even higher than 56% last year. So we then asked a little bit about your engagement with house. We asked whether you engage with house in any of the following ways. The yellow on the far right is that you engage with house a lot in this area, and the green on the left-hand side is never. So we've sorted it by kind of weighted average. So the ways that you say you engage with house most are on programming shows, using resources on the website, attending networking events and pitch up events. And fewer of you down the bottom are accessing training and bursaries. We asked you which house channels you use to find out about house activities. The majority of you are using the newsletter and are in direct communication with the house team. We then asked, to what extent do you agree or disagree with a few statements about house? And again, we've ranked these by the number of you who said that you agree or strongly agree. And it was really brilliant to see just how many of you, 82%, saying that house makes you feel connected with the wider industry. 79% of you saying house helps you offer a more varied and diverse program of work. Though this has dropped slightly compared to last year, down by 10%. And 74% saying house helps you make meaningful relationships with other venues in the network. Down at the bottom though, House helps us make meaningful relationships with local artists, only 24% of you. So that could be something that you might want to work more with House on, and House could support the network to do a little bit more of that perhaps. We asked you, would any of the following be useful to your organization if provided by House in future? And the majority of you said programming recommendations was the thing that House could do more of. 81% of you wanted that. And also high levels saying you wanted more curated networking events and more staff training. So onto staff training and training needs. We asked you how many paid employees work at your organization. And the majority of you were kind of fitting in this kind of 10 to 49 paid employees, though we have a good chunk of you having 1 to 10 paid employees as well. We also asked you how many volunteers you regularly work with. Only 20% of you are not working with volunteers at all. So it's a really strong kind of contingent of volunteers who are working across the network with, 67% of you working with 10 or more volunteers, 27% with 50 volunteers or more. We asked how many staff you have working in programming and marketing, and the average that came out from across the network was just under 2 staff in programming, about 2.5 in marketing. We asked you whether your organization had to make redundancies as a result of COVID, and sadly 35% of you said that you had to do that. We asked whether the size of your staff team will change over the next 6 to 12 months. And generally we can see that it's looking like staff teams are increasing rather than reducing. So luckily we're kind of rebuilding after COVID and after those redundancies, with 53% of you saying increase slightly, 3% increase significantly. We asked in which areas you feel staff in your organization need more training or professional development, and audience development really came out on top here. 88% of you saying you wanted more training in this area. And then these next 3, marketing, environmental sustainability, and equality, diversity, and inclusion also came out strongly. We then asked a little bit about your plans and policies. So we asked whether your organization currently has an equality, diversity, and inclusion plan or policy in place. 76% of you said yes, which is fairly consistent with 2021, which was 79% saying yes. We also asked whether your organization currently had an environmental sustainability plan in place. This was a real increase compared to 2021, where only 49% of you said yes. Now that's up to 60, which is great. Then asking about your funding and financial resilience. You are getting funding from a whole range of different sources, from about a third of you getting, is that right? Yes, about a third getting funding from the Arts Council, significant proportions, nearly 2/3 from councils or other local economic partnerships. Lots and lots of you getting audience donations, which is brilliant. That's up to kind of 75% of you, and significant numbers as well from trusts and foundations and independent donors. We asked you how confident you are that your organization will survive the next 12 months financially. And it was great to see 58% very confident and 34% fairly confident, which is really brilliant given the disruption to business models that you've faced over the last couple of years. We did ask how confident you are that you can accurately predict the financial outlook for your organization over the next 12 months. And this was a little bit less confident. So there were kind of, about 50% of you saying you were fairly confident or very confident, but 50% in the kind of not so confident or neutral. So that's something for House to think about, perhaps how they could help you with that as well. So you'll be pleased to hear that is all the graphs. So I'm just going to quickly kind of sum up some of our key findings. So engagement with House, we thought that the responses overall showed pretty high levels of engagement with House, particularly for programming shows, using the website for resources and attending events. There were lots of really kind of lovely positive comments about the work that House does. But there were also comments from you about kind of wishing that you had more time to engage, and we've picked up a few of these comments here. So House is more inclusive than ever, allows us to bring in midstream works we couldn't otherwise. House is an excellent resource, that's great. But then this comment at the bottom, I feel we're less connected with House than we could be. I know it would be really useful if more individuals from the organization were engaged with House and developing relationships. So I think that's something for the House team to kind of work on, keep building relationships with you, and hopefully you can do the same with House. On programming, we can see there is an ongoing impact of COVID. Compared with before COVID, almost half of you are putting on fewer theatre performances, and 44% of you are booking shows closer to the date of the performance. So some of the things that you said you wanted in terms of your programming, which we've kind of passed on to the House team. You said that you want more recommendations for impactful productions addressing current topics, low-cost family-focused work, and more recommendations for shows made by people of colour. So all really interesting programming recommendations for House to look into. On the audience development and marketing side, 71% of you have increased your marketing to rebuild audience numbers. And there were pretty high levels of confidence attracting audiences for certain types of work, including comedy, family work, and outdoor arts. But overall, you said you were kind of less confident attracting audiences for theatre, exhibitions, and dance, particularly those kind of new audiences. And only 37% of you had an audience development plan, which is lower than 2021. So definitely an opportunity for House there to help with some audience development and marketing training. On your staffing, volunteers, and organisational development, on average, House venues have less than 2 programming staff and less than 3 marketing staff. So you're all doing absolutely amazing things with your really small teams. Over half of you say your teams are going to increase slightly over the next year, but still going to be small teams, though over a quarter of you are working with 50 or more volunteers. The majority of you have said that you do want more staff training from House in future. So that's something for the House team to have a think about. And we know that you're interested in a wide range of training and professional development, particularly in audience development, as we've said, marketing, environmental sustainability, and equality, diversity, and inclusion. And here are just a few of the comments that you've said about those kind of things. We've engaged a lot of young staff, so general training would be good. You've asked for help connecting organisations who are looking to train staff together. And just a nice comment here saying that as a small organisation, we can't afford much training. The opportunities provided by House are really useful and very appreciated. So overall, the things that as Indigo, we've been discussing with the House team, where we think that there might be some more opportunities to work with the sector are in programming, continuing to build on the strong House offer, more training in audience development and marketing, supporting your audience development with kind of building local relationships, working with artists, bringing the network together for coordinated campaigns. We think that House, and this is something we've been talking about as well, could look at kind of some different models for training programs, prioritizing key areas of need across the network, and consulting with you further about what you need. Volunteers, considering how you could support the network a little bit more to get more out of volunteers and develop the volunteering pool. And finally, we've suggested that House repeat this research annually if possible, so that we can keep checking in with you and tracking any changes. And just to say again, we're really, really grateful for your input. Thank you so much to everyone who took part, was able to give this really useful insight to the House team. So that is everything from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Flo. That was fantastic. A really good whistle-stop tour through some really interesting stats, and we really appreciate you doing this on what is the hottest day in history. Hence why we're both sat in darkened rooms today going through it. No, the surveys has been wonderful for House. It's been really really useful in knowing the direction of like what we need to do going forwards, and some things that really did stand out loud and clear. You know, the more confidence in producing outdoor and family programming that stood out, and we're having our first ever outdoor touring season is underway at the moment for summer 22, and following the survey we will be repeating this again in summer 23 as well, making sure there's some more family and outdoor art that we are touring. We definitely hear you about programming and getting increasingly diverse programming in theatre, and also can see that, you know, when we are touring theatres with you, we are going to be there to support you through marketing advice, bringing people together and working collaboratively with the artists and yourselves on coming together with the best marketing strategy to reach those new audiences. We're also going to be wanting to work with programmers like yourselves, or with our Theatre Associate scheme, which will be running, opening up this summer. So if you see theatre that you think should be touring through house, you can let us know, and we can make we can approach companies for future touring opportunities. Also, training wise as well as marketing, there was a big desire for more audience development support. We will be running our pilot project in audience development with 12 different organisations starting this September. This is something that we are hoping to run on an annual basis, working with a small cohort of organisations to come up with strategies, looking at your box office data and your, you know, surrounding demographics as well, about how you can start reaching out to specific audiences and invite them to your venue for work. Yeah, we will continue to do training opportunities, looking at how we can expand what we're offering, certainly in marketing, and also the bursaries that we can offer to small venues to go and experience things like the Arts Marketing Association conference, the Theatres Trust, Julie's Bicycle, which is of course in environmental and sustainability, and also on diversity and inclusion as well, making sure there is appropriate training that's being fed down to organisations throughout the network. And yeah, using volunteers is it's a big thing that has come out from this as well, and providing training which is about upskilling your volunteers and converting them into more community champions who can help you take the work out and spread that real word of mouth marketing as well. They're quite often slightly untapped assets that you have, a huge number of volunteers if you have a small team, and how best can we use them as well. And yeah, we're hoping that we're going to do more sessions like this, recordings that you can watch in your own time. You know, we were doing afternoon teas throughout lockdowns, and over the past few years, we noticed that I think with people being back at work, working really hard, really stretched teams, it's hard to find time to use the assets that house are producing. So we will be recording more so you can watch whenever works is convenient for you as well. And yeah, we will continue to come out to you. We've ran a series where we did cluster meetings throughout the network in May and June, and we're looking about how we're going to come, do more opportunities where we are coming to you in certain different regions where you can meet up with nearby venues as well. And we're very keen on making it useful for you to be able to engage with the network. So yes, please keep your eyes peeled. Head over to the house website. If you have any questions following this session, we're more than happy. Flo's more than happy to answer any questions. So what we suggest you do is leave a comment under this YouTube video or on our website, or drop us an email at info@housetheatre.org.uk. We can pass them on to Flo, or we might be able to answer themselves and get back to you. So with that, thank you so much again to Flo. Really helpful. Of course, we'll be really keen to run this research again next year and see how it compares. So look out for that next year.
Yeah.
But,
thank you for having me. And,
not a problem at all. Thank
always
you,
lovely
Flo.
to do house things.
Fantastic, brilliant. Well, thank you so much, and we'll chat very soon. Thank you, guys.
Bye.